Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you enjoy these deep dives, be sure to like and subscribe. Today we're diving into a topic a lot of you have been asking about: the global financial system. Our sources suggest things are about to get very interesting, especially when it comes to what's going on with the BRICS nations.
Yeah, there are definitely signs that we're on the verge of some big changes. The current system that's been in place since 1971, the one where the US dollar is tied to oil, is often called Bretton Woods II.
And that's given the U.S. a ton of power globally, right?
Absolutely. But there's this growing feeling that Bretton Woods II is getting shaky and a new world order could be on the horizon.
One of our sources, Andy Sheckman, puts it pretty bluntly. He says, he who has the commodities wins. His argument is that we're shifting toward a system some are calling Bretton Woods III, where commodities are going to be king.
Right. And Scheckman points to the BRICS nations as major players in this shift.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa.
Exactly. Their combined economic strength and their control over so many essential resources are putting them in a position to challenge the current setup.
And here's what's really interesting. Over 55 nations have either applied or shown interest in joining BRICS. That's starting to look less like an economic bloc and more like a whole new world order. So how could this new order actually play out?
Well, Stuckman suggests that BRICS is working on a new reserve currency,
Replace the US dollar.
potentially. And he thinks it could be backed by a basket of commodities along with various local currencies.
Wow, that would be a huge departure from how things work now.
It would. And get this, he even suggests this new currency could be digital, which means they could bypass traditional financial systems
Like SWIFT.
like SWIFT. If they can pull this off, it could seriously weaken the US dollar's global dominance.
And lead to a ton of economic uncertainty.
Definitely. And we're already seeing some countries moving away from the US dollar.
Like who?
Scheckman points to Iraq. They've been under US sanctions for years. Now they've made it illegal to trade in dollars, gotten rid of physical US dollar bills, and they've even applied to join BRICS. That's a pretty clear message that they're done with the dollar.
And they're probably not the only ones. Steckman argues that the sanctions the West has imposed, like the ones on Russia, could actually be backfiring.
He thinks they're pushing countries to look for alternatives to the US financial system.
So basically, weaponizing the dollar might end up speeding up the adoption of these new systems.
Exactly.
Okay, so if the dollar's dominance really is in danger, what happens to the U.S. financial system? Scheckman doesn't paint a very pretty picture, does he?
No, he doesn't. He points out that the U.S. is already over $35 trillion in debt. And when you factor in things like Social Security and Medicare, the unfunded liabilities are almost $200 trillion.
That's a crazy amount of money. And the fact that the biggest asset on the U.S. government balance sheet is student loan debt is a pretty bad sign, too.
Right. Those factors could easily lead to a loss of confidence in the dollar. And when that happens, countries will start looking for other options. And that's where China's moves come in.
Let's talk about that. What specifically is China doing that makes you think they're getting ready for a new world order?
Well, the Shanghai Gold Exchange has surpassed COMEX in volume, making it the world's second most traded exchange.
So they're becoming a major player in the gold market,
Absolutely. And they also bought the London Metal Exchange.
giving them more control over important resources.
Exactly. Things like copper, zinc, and aluminum. And on top of that, they've set up the BRICS Grain Exchange, which is a direct challenge to the West's control over agricultural commodities.
So they're strategically taking control of vital resources, from precious metals to basic materials to food.
It's like a carefully calculated plan. Steckman believes this is all part of China's strategy to reshape the entire global economic landscape.
So we have a lot going on here. BRICS nations are gaining power. They might be creating a new reserve currency backed by commodities, and they're buying up a ton of gold. What does all of this mean for the future of the global financial system? And more importantly, what does it mean for all of us?
Well, that's a question we'll explore in the next part of our discussion. We'll dig deeper into what these shifts might mean and talk about what people can do to navigate this changing landscape. It really does feel like we're moving towards a multipolar world, one where economic power isn't just concentrated in a few Western nations. The question is, how does that transition happen? And it's probably not going to be smooth sailing, is it?
Yeah, we could be watching the decline of a world led by the U.S. and the rise of a system with many different power centers, and that has implications for everything. Trade, investment, geopolitics, global security. It's a lot to think about.
It is. It's definitely a time of uncertainty and change. We can't predict the future, but it's super important for anyone who wants to navigate this new world order to at least try and understand these trends and what might happen, especially because things could get pretty volatile during this transition.
So it's not just about which currency is on top or who has the most gold. We're talking about a major shift in global power. What did you find in the source material that really speaks to how big this change could be?
Well, Steckman even suggests that this could all be by design, like a controlled demolition of the US dollar to make way for something new. He thinks that by weakening the dollar and pushing other countries away, the US might actually be setting the stage for a global financial reset.
That sounds a little like a conspiracy theory. But the more we talk about this, the more it feels like we're in the middle of something historic. So if this shift is really happening, what can the average person do to get ready for all this upheaval?
That's a good question, and Steckman actually talks about that too. He says people need to be proactive about protecting their wealth and their financial future. Now, I know that might sound scary, but it doesn't have to be. He realizes that not everyone has a ton of money to throw around.
So what does being proactive actually look like? Is he talking about hoarding supplies and building bunkers?
Not exactly. It's always good to have some emergency supplies, but Skipman's main focus is on diversifying your investments and reducing your exposure to risk.
So investing in things like precious metals.
Exactly. He's a big believer in gold and silver. He sees them as safe havens that have held their value during tough economic times, but diversification is key. He also suggests looking at foreign currencies, real estate, and even cryptocurrencies as ways to protect yourself against a weakening dollar.
It sounds like he's saying people should become less reliant on traditional financial institutions and government systems. But let's be real. Not everyone can afford to invest in gold, foreign currencies, and real estate. What about people who are struggling to just get by? What can they do?
There are smaller steps people can take that can make a big difference. Things like paying down debt, building up an emergency fund, and learning about alternative financial systems can empower anyone, no matter how much money they make.
It's about taking control even in small ways.
Yeah.
This all feels like a bit of a wake-up call. It's a reminder that the world is changing fast, and we need to be adaptable and stay informed if we want to do well in this new landscape.
Absolutely. The old ways of thinking about the world are being challenged. We have to be open to new possibilities and new perspectives. Skekman's ideas might not be for everyone, and some of what he says is definitely controversial, but he's making us think critically about the future and question the things we've been told about the global financial system.
And that's what matters.
Yeah.
He's encouraging us to look beyond the headlines and really understand what's shaping the world so we can make smart decisions about our lives and our money. So as these BRICS nations get more powerful and this new world order starts to take shape, what should we be paying attention to? What are the signs that this shift is speeding up or maybe even slowing down?
That's a great question. There are definitely some things to keep an eye on. For example, any announcements or concrete steps about the development of this new BRICS reserve currency.
Right, because if and when that happens, it's going to be a huge deal for the global financial system. What else should we be watching?
Pay attention to how central banks around the world are managing their reserves. Are they sticking with US dollars, or are they diversifying into things like gold and other currencies?
That's a good point. It's a subtle but important indicator of whether people still have confidence in the dollar.
Exactly. And keep an eye on geopolitics. How are the relationships between the BRICS nations and the West developing? Are they working together more, or are things getting more tense? That'll give us some clues about how this power shift is playing out.
It's like a giant game of chess.
Yeah.
Every move has consequences.
I like that analogy. Understanding the rules of the game and the motivations of the players is key to figuring out what might happen next. And this isn't just about economics, it's about global stability and who holds power in the world.
It feels like we're standing at a crossroads. The choices we make today will have huge implications for the future. So where do we go from here? How do we make sense of all this and figure out what it means for our own lives?
That's where critical thinking comes in. We have to be careful not to get caught up in fear-mongering or blindly believe everything we hear.
We have to do our own research, consider different perspectives, and make choices that are right for us and our goals.
Exactly. It's about taking responsibility for our own financial well-being and not just sitting back and letting this global transformation happen around us.
Skekman has given us a lot to think about, that's for sure. This is a complicated and constantly changing situation. There's no easy answer or one solution that works for everyone.
That's true. But if we stay informed, stay flexible, and stay proactive, we can get through this transition with more clarity and confidence.
So what's the one big takeaway you'd leave us with today? What's the most important thing to remember as we navigate this shifting world order?
I think the most important thing is this. Don't underestimate the power of knowledge and awareness. If we understand the forces at play and the different ways things could unfold, we can make better decisions about our money, our careers, and our lives.
Knowledge is power.
Right.
It really is. And in a world that's changing so quickly and everything feels so uncertain, that power is more important than ever. It feels like we've just started to explore this whole topic, but we're out of time for today.
We have. But hopefully this has been a good starting point for understanding these complex issues, and maybe it's made you a little curious to learn more.
Definitely. And remember, everyone, this is just the start of the conversation. The global financial system is always changing, and the future is full of possibilities.
So it's important to stay informed, question everything, and really think critically about the information you come across.
Don't just take our word for it, or anyone's word for that matter. Do your own research, look at things from different angles, and come to your own conclusions.
And maybe most importantly, be adaptable. The world's changing fast, and the people who can embrace that change and deal with uncertainty are going to be the ones who succeed in this new era.
We've talked a lot about the potential risks and challenges today, but there's also opportunity in all this uncertainty, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. This could be a time when we create a fairer and more sustainable global system, one that's not so dependent on a single currency, and one that's more inclusive of different voices and perspectives.
It's a chance for new ideas and innovations to come to the forefront, for new leaders and alliances to form, and for a rebalancing of power on the world stage.
It's a time of incredible uncertainty, but also incredible potential. And it's up to each of us to engage with these changes thoughtfully and proactively if we want to create the kind of world we want to live in.
That's a great point. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the changing world order. We hope you found it helpful and got you thinking.
It's been great being here. And just remember, the future isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create together.
That's a great way to end it. Stay curious, everyone, stay informed, and stay ahead of the curve. We'll see you next time.